So we're going to talk about certain characters in the book just to underscore what they're to represent for us in Woolf's understanding of intimacy and knowledge. There are lots of other angles in this book. There are lots of other ways of approaching this book that are at least as equally interesting, but we'll stay with our modern, postmodern themes as we talk about To the Lighthouse. Let's start with Mr. Tansley, usually called just Tansley, right? Not like Mr. and Mrs. Ramsay, who are, again, go without first names throughout the novel. They are defined in their marriage. Tansley is we're always reminded that he is poor, that he comes from the lower classes, and he's always reminding people he's proud, right, to not be a rich guy. And at Wesleyan, when I talked with my students about this, how does this relate to social class on campus, let's say at a university, where lots of our students are on financial aid, a lot of them don't pay tuition because we have a scholarship program, but still, when they get here, just how does social class appear? And it does. I mean, there are some people able to do more things than others because they have more money, but on the whole, social life on a campus mitigates many of the displays of wealth that you would find in other places in this country and elsewhere. In Virginia Woolf's time in England, social class was much more obvious, and for Tansley, it's obvious because people from the upper classes, as he would see them, people from the upper classes have an income independent of their labor. That's really important. In other words, and this goes back right to aristocracy, that aristocrats don't have to work for their income, and the income comes to them without labor. That's what it means to be a noble. And by the time you get to the beginning of the 20th century, people who have independent incomes have a certain freedom, right? They don't have to work for the money. The money comes to them out of a trust fund or out of rents or something like that. Tansley ain't like that. Tansley is the guy who says, I work for everything. I struggle for everything. I'm the guy, see this shoulder? There's a chip on it for a good reason, because I know what I have to do to support myself. And I'll support myself, Tansley says, because I'm really smart and hardworking. And I'm a student of Mr. Ramsay. I want to be a philosopher. I want to understand things. And I have to work hard because I don't come for money. He'll always be the person to remind you that. Why do they call him an atheist? I think that's an interesting thing about Tansley. They call him the atheist. And I think there are several reasons. The one I want you to focus on is that Tansley doesn't believe in stuff. He just doesn't believe in things. You probably know people like that. You probably know people who they believe in everything. You know, if somebody comes along with some crazy idea, that's an interesting idea. I believe in that. Some cure for the common cold, or some shortcut to a new place, or they're credulous people. And then there are other people who are they think they're so smart because they never believe in anything. Tansley's that second kind of person. He's the kind of person who his intelligence shows him why other people are believing on false premises. He's a skeptic, if you will. And he's an atheist, as the kids call him, the Ramsay kids call him the atheist. And they do that because he is then an Enlightenment figure. That's for our purposes, right? When atheism and the Enlightenment go together, like milk and cookies. So Tansley is the Enlightenment figure, not as vainglorious, not as imposing as Mr. Ramsay, but nonetheless, the person who will show you you're foolish to believe. You're foolish to believe.
Was he an atheist, Mr. Tansley? Why an atheist? They called him the atheist, right? Why did they call him? It's like a joke, right? But why do they call him the atheist? He doesn't believe in anything. This is what philosophy and education produce in a certain kind of person, Woolf thinks. The incapacity for belief, which is a terrible wound. You know, we in our age, we talk about critical thinking as being so important and teaching people how to be critical. And so so that they actually will never fall for something that somebody else is selling them that is in a less than sound way. But what happens is you're so good at being ironic or critical or distant is you never have the capacity to like anything or to have strong affection for things, because strong affection is usually not based in reason. And Mr. Tansley is an atheist because he just won't believe in it. And that is an impoverishment.
The other key person I want to talk a little bit about right now is Lily, the artist. And what kind of artist is Lily? Lily is a painter. Lily is a painter. And she is often the voice of Virginia Woolf in the novel. But it's interesting, isn't it, that Virginia Woolf has the artist in the form of a painter. Virginia Woolf's sister was a painter. What else do we know about her? What else do we know about her? We know that she has a hard time in society. She can turn it on, the charm, when she has to. She can connect to other people, but she has a hard time in society, and she has a particularly difficult time with men. She gets impatient with men, with their need for attention, for compliments, for what Virginia Woolf calls sympathy. Lily wants to do her art. She doesn't want to have to please people. She doesn't want to have to look pretty. She doesn't want to have to act in a certain way. She wants to make her art. She wants to make her art. She's trying to get it right. And getting it right for her as a painter means finding the proper relation, the proper distance to the object, to the thing that she is trying to depict. And that, I think, is an important facet of why Virginia Woolf makes her artist, Lily, a painter, is because so much about a painter is finding the appropriate distance, right? You go in and out of focus. I can do that, right? And for Lily, she's always trying to find what is the appropriate distance. And that, for Virginia Woolf, is such a powerful metaphor. How do you connect to other people? Do you like James? You want to be submerged in your mother? Do you want to just merge and become one? That's could be disastrous, right? It could lead you to psychosis if you just lose your complete identity in someone. But if you're just distant and aloof and never connect to anybody, that's a lonely and thin existence. How do you find the right place in relation to other people, in relation to the objects? That's the painterly problem, and it's the human problem for Virginia Woolf. It's the human problem. How do we connect to others? What is intimacy? And how do we achieve it without losing ourselves or submerging someone else? Let's talk about Mr. Ramsay. Mr. Ramsay. He's such an interesting figure, right? He strides around the house right on the coast there, and he's chewing on his pipe, and he's cogitating, and he's trying to understand the world and understand knowledge. And in so doing, he seems blind to lots of things around him. And then suddenly he kind of wakes up and sees them again. Mr. Ramsay is loved and he is hated. He arouses strong emotions. Let me just read you a page from page 31 of the Harcourt edition. It's the second page of chapter 6. Mr. Ramsay is saying to his wife, there wasn't the slightest possible chance they could go to the lighthouse tomorrow. Mr. Ramsay snapped that out irascibly. How did he know, she asked. The wind often changed, Mrs. Ramsay. The wind can change, which is true, although all the indications are that it won't. And then Mr. Ramsay. The extraordinary irrationality of her remark, the folly of women's minds, enraged him. He had ridden through the valley of death, been shattered and shivered, and now she flew in the face of facts, made his children hope what was utterly out of the question, in effect told lies. He stamped his foot on the stone stump. Damn you, he said. But what had she said? Simply that it might be nice tomorrow, that it might be fine tomorrow? So it might. Not with the barometer falling and the wind due west. Mr. Ramsay. And then the next paragraph. We're not told who's thinking or who's seeing this. So we just switch points of view. To pursue truth with such astonishing lack of consideration of other people's feelings. To rend the thin veils of civilization so wantonly, so brutally, was to her so horrible an outrage of human decency that, without replying, dazed and blinded, she bent her head as if to let the pelt of jagged hail, the drench of dirty water, bespatter her unrebuked. There was nothing to be said. This is a very important thing for Mrs. Ramsey. There is nothing to be said. Some things you should just know by her presence. Mr. Ramsey stood by her in silence. Very humbly, at length, he said that he would step over and ask the Coast Guards if she liked. There was no one who she reverenced as she reverenced him. And this is a little passage in this glorious novel, but it shows you the dynamic of these two people, right? She's like, well, the wind could change. It could be nice. It's happened before. And Mr. Ramsey'd go, oh my God, it's happened once out of a million times. How can you fill someone with false hope? And Mrs. Ramsey's thinking, how could you so brutally step on somebody's hope? And she acquiesces, I suppose you can say. Or she seems to acquiesce. She bends her head, says, let this monster of knowledge rage on. But then Mr. Ramsey, seeing her there, says, well, I guess I can ask somebody if it really will be nice tomorrow. He'll ask somebody. He knows the clouds are gathering. And then she's filled with love that he's willing to bend even what he knows. That's this dynamic of the novel. Mr. Ramsey is a philosopher. And what kind of philosopher is he? He is an analytic philosopher. And what does philosophy have to do with it? Someone asks, I think it's Lily who says, what kind of philosophy does Mr. Ramsey do? And one of the kids says, he wonders whether, or he investigates tables and things like that. He wants to know whether things are really there when no one's there. I just knock on the table a microphone is sitting on, or is there a sound in the room when no one's here listening? Is there a table when no one's here to sit at the table? These are the questions. They're ontological and epistemological questions that Mr. Ramsey worries about.